Hey Dave, how's it going?
Very good, man. How are you guys?
Hi, Dave.
How are you?
Good,
Uh,
thanks.
we're good, good. There's an ice storm where I'm at this morning. What's the weather like in Singapore?
It's a little bit cooler than it usually is because we've had a lot of rain. It's monsoon season, and so everything's a little bit cooler than normal. So it's like mid to high 20s, which is actually really nice for Singapore.
Yeah, right.
So
I
it's good.
mean, the heat's like extreme there most of the year, right?
Yeah, so when we get into summer, it'll be like cracking over 40 degrees, and it's
Oh
like
shit.
super humid still, and just
Yeah,
really, really, really hard. Whereas now it's like, yeah, there's a lot of rain, but
yeah.
it's nice and cool. So it's very nice to be in here.
So it must be good to work in a live fire environment in that kind of heat.
Dry. Yeah.
We've got a
Yeah.
lot of aircon, which balances it
Okay.
out
All
quite well.
right.
So
All right. Good.
yeah, if we're in a colder climate, you'd be like,
Yeah.
thank God we're cooking with fire because we can just
Yeah.
go stand by it and warm up. Everyone
All
would be
right.
fighting over the grills and ovens.
All right. Cool. So I've never been to Burn Ends, like in any version of it. Sadly, because I'm
We'll
from
have
what
to get you
everything
over
I.
here.
Yeah, thanks, man. So usually when I do these interviews, it's with I usually know the person a little bit because it's a long interview.
Yep.
It's like an hour, and to have a conversation, it's better to know them a little bit just to kind of break the ice and not like just go over the basic history of blah blah blah. Where do you learn to cook and that kind of stuff. So, but we have a
Yep.
friend in we have a friend in common in PA.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I like I've written for
Obviously,
four. So when I saw he shot the book and he was working with you guys for what a few years on this, I guess.
yeah. It took
Right?
about
Yeah,
2 years.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he
Yeah. It
said.
wasn't a.
So I called him up yesterday and just like got the rundown.
Oh,
So I feel like I know you a little
background
bit,
check.
and yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel like there won't be as many surprises and things. So yeah, so he told me
Awesome.
a bunch of things. You know,
Hopefully good.
yeah, yeah. First of all,
Hopefully
he
good.
said the one thing he like kept saying is, it was an overall great experience, and it was a great experience because you trusted them, you trusted PA and Lotta. So,
Yep.
and he said
Yep.
that's kind of a theme in your workplace that you hire people that you trust and you build trust with them, and they like to stay there, and you reward them with trust, and they reward you with kind of loyalty in that way.
Yep.
Is that true, or is he just like making shit up?
Uh, no, I'd like to. I'd actually like to think it's true because we've.
Yeah,
I think 2 years ago we had
yeah.
two of our staff members reach 10 years, and that's
Okay.
when we hit 10 years.
Yeah.
And then this year we had a gap, so we didn't have anyone last year. And then this year we've got 7 people hitting 10 years,
Okay.
and whether it's PA and Lotta in terms of trusting, like I've known them maybe
Hmm.
over 10 years as
Right.
well. And, I reached out to them and was like, hey, I think I'm ready to do a book. And I couldn't think of anyone better than you guys to do it
Yeah.
with. It's not because I wanted to control the situation
Yeah.
or the creativity or whatever. It's because I trusted them to do what they're really good at.
Hmm.
And, to do the book justice with the best intentions, right? And,
Right. Right. No, I mean that's
and
how I like to work too. With I mean, I've worked on a lot of cookbooks at this point, and I think it only works if you trust each other and you're kind of open to each other, but you give each other space to do what the other can do. So
yeah,
yeah, I think with those guys, you have to kind of let the freak fly. I guess I don't know, like because they are so creative and they are so brilliant.
yeah. And look, I think the thing is, it's like when I look at what they do, I have no fucking idea what they do. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
I see, or I hear them talking about stuff, and then you see an end result, right? But you don't understand, or I don't, how it goes
yeah.
from A to B. And I think
Right.
instead of me trying to micromanage that, the road from A to B, I'm just like, this is what you guys are really good at. Let you guys be really good at it, and let's see the result. And
Yeah.
Luckily they're very fucking good at what they do, and we're very, very happy with the book.
Yeah, no, it's really beautiful, and it's very non-traditional too, which I love. There's so many cookbooks are just like especially restaurant cookbooks. They're just the same shit all the time, the same kind of format of, and they're boring. Even with like beautiful photos and nice paper, they become boring very easily. And you buy them, you put them on your shelf, and they look good, but you never open them. You never like read anything. So I mean, it's hard.
Yeah, I was about to say the same. It seems to have a different balance between talking about the history of the restaurant, your personal journey, and it focuses on the technique and the process, and I think through trying to define what the nature of the work is and why, and then the recipes. But the recipes are not, the center of everything. It's like, yeah, we'll get there. But before that, there is all this, which is actually what the work is, right?
Yeah.
So,
And
that balance is cool.
I think that was actually the very first conversation that we had when we were discussing it as well. It's like, we don't want to do another cookbook, like a repetitive formula cookbook that just, here it is, bang, bang, bang. And I think coming back to the recipes, we didn't want to do them, or I didn't want to do them. They didn't want to do them. And, a little bit further down the track, we succumbed and we're like, no, we need to do them. Just do the fucking recipes. We're like, fine, but we're going to do it on our terms. These are our terms for the recipes.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to talk about that too. That's one of the things he said. Is like the first thing you guys agreed on was no recipes, but at the end it was like, okay, we have to do recipes. But then it's like, but we're not going to make them so easy that everyone in fucking Kansas City can make them. Just by going to the supermarket, it's, or just using what you have in your pantry. It's, some of the recipes have like 40 portions and things like that. They're just what they are at the restaurant. It's not for everyone, and you just kind of have to figure it out.
Yeah. Look, I think the thing was like, I've heard so many nightmares about recipe testing and trying to get everything accurate, and did the chef leave out the magical ingredient to what makes it special? And I think, I looked at it and was like, look, these are the recipes we use every single day. We've got different equipment, different products, different this, but these are the recipes we use every single day in the restaurant. This works with the scaling and everything. It might not work for your dinner party for 2 people when you're trying to impress your girlfriend or your fiance or your wife or whoever it might be. This is for, this is what we do. If you want to try and scale it and replicate and have a bit of fun, go nuts and enjoy. Yeah.
And from what I understand, PA and Lotta tested the recipes on a little hibachi in Sweden.
Yeah. Did you see the photo the other day? Actually,
no.
That's one thing that made me, I guess, super happy to have done the book, and also to have worked with them as well, because they were genuinely interested in what we were doing, why we were doing it, and how we were doing it. And to see them go away, or especially PA on the hibachi, to go away and try different techniques that we've done and recipes that we've done, that's fucking sick. That's really cool.
It has to be hard too to make recipes when just the control of the fire is so attuned to your specific restaurant. Like, how can you translate that? In a standard format. I mean, it wouldn't even make sense if you tried, really.
It's hard. Like we've done a lot of pop-ups and events, and we've got to use makeshift equipment and stuff, and it's hard. And even when I cook at home, I've got like Kamado Joe, and you know, to do the things that we do in the restaurant and get that sort of, you know, that perfection that we want, it's just so hard at home.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
so
I mean,
hard
but
at
so
home.
much
But
of it is intuition, you know, and just like knowing heat.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
it's something that, you know, you just learn. And people go, how do you teach that? And it's like you can't teach it. It takes time.
Yeah.
And it's really that, you know, you do it over and over again. You see the same piece of steak all the time, and you can see the subtle changes that, you know, it looks different, feels different, and you just know that it's right. And you know the heat that you've got to cook on, and whether it's hot enough, and how you need to manage it, and all those little details that, you know, you, there's no textbook. It's just time and training and repetition.
Yeah, and I'm curious, what would you say has been the process to get to this take-on barbecue and what you call contemporary barbecue? And for people that haven't seen the book, how does that look like?
How do we get to the point where
Yeah,
we are?
yeah, because you
Uh,
mentioned training. What are the steps? In retrospective, that took
well,
you to
look,
that
I think
technique.
in terms of, you know, my, like, growing up in Australia, and I'm sorry, I will make this a little bit convoluted, but growing up in Australia, you know, there's not a huge history of tradition in terms of food. And what you actually get is you get this huge melting pot of all these different cultures and ethnicities in Australia that have bastardized their traditions and made them slightly Australian. So you've got this sense of, like, ability to not conform to strict tradition. I think that's a really important part of it. And then, you know, traveling all over the world and seeing what everyone else does and how amazing, you know, whether you're in Japan or China or, you know, the Philippines or Scandinavia, in Denmark or Spain or France or in South America or wherever you are, there's so many incredible flavors. And to sort of be able to capture what I like about those flavors and essentially bastardize them to what, you know, I think would be nice, you know, it's quite liberating. And it means we don't have to be like, oh, this has to be like this and this has to be like this. We can gel everything together and just have a lot of fun with it. And so, you know, modern barbecue is that, you know, everyone's got barbecue in their history and their tradition, right? Because that's how we all started cooking. But how we use it is all very different, and the flavors that we do are all very different. And to bring them all back together is just, you know, that is the future of modern barbecue. It's what's next, what's cool, what flavor do you like, how can we pair it? Being in Singapore, we can get products from all over the world and combine different flavors at any time we want, and we don't have that stigma of tradition and being like, this has to be with this and done like this. It's like, you know what, fuck it, we just want to make it tasty. And, you know, that's it. That's our rule, right? Cook it over wood and make it tasty. And so over time, you're able to build that out with, like, coming back to the staff by teaching them, training them, and then learning to trust their intuition to be able to cook, like, impeccably over long services and come up with and create new dishes and stuff that will stand the test of time.
So what I find interesting of this whole kind of modern barbecue concept, that's, you know, it's been going on for, well, like 20 years or so, I guess, in some form or another. You know, it's like you said, you know, every culture kind of started by cooking over fire. But this modern element to it, it's like, why did it get so? Why did we get so disconnected from that? You know, just cooking over fire, especially in kind of like nicer kitchens. And it's like, is the fact that it's kind of resurging now? Is it? Does it have? Is it? kind of like some kind of rebellion against, French and Spanish and very, intricate fine dining? Is that why, this very kind of primal cooking is kind of finding back its way
I,
into, modern kitchens?
I definitely, I wouldn't like to say it's a rebellion,
Okay.
but I think a big part of the reason why it's not done in, a lot of classical kitchens is it's fucking hard work. It's like it's extra work, extra steps. I remember in our old kitchen, we could never keep it clean because there's ash going
Yeah.
everywhere. And in those perfect kitchens, that was a massive liability, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, one part of it is, yes, it's not a rebellion, it's just very hard work. So you've got to dedicate a lot of resources to doing that essentially one job or that one dish in a high-end kitchen. So it does make sense. But if you revolve your whole restaurant around it, you get some sort of economies of scale that you can operate a business out of. I think the other thing is, I'm pretty sure Paris specifically is one of the hardest places in the world to have live fire.
Yeah. Because
Right.
of regulations or something, or?
Because of
Yeah. Okay.
regulations, and also
Yeah.
in the UK for a long time before the water misfiltration hoods
Yeah.
came
Right.
into it, it was very, very hard for live fire as well. So I think that's two reasons why it wasn't done before, and I think one of the reasons why it's being done more so now is because a lot of people feel that the end result justifies the hard work. And, for me, it's, fire has that little bit of magic in it that, can never be replicated, and you can't explain it why.
Yeah.
You can't put, something like a few drops or whatever and it'll make it taste the same. Live fire does something magic to food that people just find intrinsically delicious. And I think people look at that and go, actually, that makes fucking sense. Let's cook like this for our guests because they will find it delicious.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the inconsistency of it sometimes makes food taste good. Like cooking meat sous vide is so fucking boring. It might have the perfect, texture throughout, but it's just so boring. It's just the same every time, and sometimes that little bit of char or fat in the wrong way just tastes so good. Do you know what I mean? Like inconsistency. I think it's so underrated in all these kitchens that we've been, trained to just think perfection is uniformity for so long. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I think, the first thing that sprang to mind when you said that was, when you cook whole fish on the bone.
Yeah.
And, in the traditional fine dining kitchens, you'd never ever comprehend serving, the shoulder and the tail at the same time because you can't cook them. You can't cook them sous vide at the same. It just doesn't work, right?
Right.
But when you cook a whole fish, okay, yes, the tail will be more cooked than, the shoulder bit. But when you eat the whole fish, actually the tail's delicious cooked like that, and the shoulder's delicious cooked like that. And it's like that process of, the changes and the nuances in like the fat and the flavor and the texture and the charred bits is, perfectly imperfect.
Yeah. Perfectly imperfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Yeah. So.
There is a section in the book in which you talk about how you work with this your staff and a full staff takeover, and yeah, I'm curious about that approach to your team and why it's so important to be fully, in in depth with them too. So the process is intense, the technique is intense, but also your work with them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, I think there's a couple of things for the staff takeover. Number one, it's actually the only time I ever eat in the restaurant, so it's one of my favorite moments of the year. And the second thing is it gives the team so much value, and it forces them to do things that they thought they couldn't do or they weren't ready for, and when they go through the actual process of sitting down, thinking about a dish, discussing the dish, doing a first draft, and realizing, fuck, actually, I'm quite a way away from where I want it to be, and then over the subsequent weeks or months, refining that and adjusting and changing, and then ending up with a product that they're very happy with, and then cooking for their family and friends is, to give them that opportunity. I think twofold. One, it scares the hell out of them because it's their food. It's not my food, right? They just cook my food and I deal with the consequences. But in this case, they get to deal with the pros and the cons of it. So it gives them that nervous energy. And then when they realize they've created something amazing and their family and their friends are super proud of them and enjoyed it, it fills them with this belief that they can do amazing things. And you see the teamwork because now we've got a lot bigger, we've got more staff so we combine the dishes between members, and they get to work with each other, so they need to learn teamwork and compromise and sourcing and ideas, and it's one of the best things we do, and something that everyone looks forward to, despite it being a huge amount of hard work. And it's something I like. It's the one time I eat in the restaurant every year. It's the only time.
You staged at Noma. Did you ever take part in those, not the staff takeovers, but the, what is it called? Like Saturday night projects or something?
The Saturday night projects. I did, and it was a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't a disaster. It was potato and rhubarb.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly what the dish was, but I think I did it because Renee was like, "Oh, I want to work on a dessert that's potato and rhubarb," or something like that. Maybe a passing comment from him. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. I'm going to do this as my project. And it's just like, the practices went all right. It was an okay dish, and then you put it up at like 2 a.m. in the morning on Saturday after a big week.
Yeah.
And it's like something, and you've got to use a team to do it, right? It's not just you cooking for everyone. And, some things don't turn out right, and it's just, you put it up and it gets critiqued in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And you've got to, your heart's on the line, right? It's like everything's all in, and you've got to take the feedback and you listen to it, and if it's good enough, it'll evolve to your next step. If it's not, it goes to the side and c'est la vie, right? But that was a very, very scary process. But a lot of fun.
I'm sure dreams have been crushed. So what was the potato? Like what was like the potato? What did you do to the potato to make it kind of sweet?
I think we might have done. There might have been we did a sweet, and it wasn't a sweet potato puree.
Right.
It was a sweetened potato puree, and then it had compressed rhubarb and a rhubarb granita, and it had crispy potato chips for texture as well. But it was just And I think I think what I probably big takeaway from that event is that it's really important to recognize at the end of it that the dish is like meh, and be able to move on and be like, okay, put it to one side. Even though I think I'm the Messiah, I'm not. Put it to one side and let's look at what might be good.
Yeah, I mean, but sometimes those things that come out of that, maybe that dish didn't work as a whole, but maybe a piece of it does. You know what I mean? Like when I'm writing something, I'm always having these like little beautiful bits of text that don't exactly fit with the whole thing, but they're
Yeah,
there. They're still there, and I know it makes sense somewhere. Maybe not in this particular story, but maybe down the way, writing something else, it kind of comes back and has a use. And yeah, I love to save those little bits. There's like sometimes like in a document, sometimes just in my head, but
yeah,
sometimes those like they just need time to work themselves out.
yeah. This one I
Uh,
think was a trash can project,
okay. All
but I
right.
think,
Yeah.
I think the process of it,
Yeah.
and that whole thing about seeing what your team can do
Yeah.
was the biggest lesson. It was, what can your team do? Like,
Yeah.
don't think it all has to be on one person. Don't think that one
Hmm.
person's the one that leads everything. Look within your team and try and draw out what they can do, and let them actually be the life and the force as much as you are to bring you food to the guests and to the
So
table.
is the setup kind of the same with your staff takeover? Like it's in teams, like, or the team helps every person?
Yeah, look,
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
always team, and so basically, it's essentially the process will be we'll split the team up into dishes or groups,
Uh-huh.
and we just sort of say, give us your ideas, and we're not even putting people into like snacks, starters, mains, desserts at this stage. It's just show us your ideas
Hmm.
and talk us through your ideas, and then let's go from there. And there's 3 or 4 senior staff that work on it with these guys, and we'll take
Okay.
their ideas and we'll try and flesh it out a little bit with them, understand where it might fit, and then we'll be like first draft, and then the first draft will come up, and you'll be like, okay, where do we take it? Does it go left, right? Is it perfect? Should we put it here? And then we go, where does this fit in the menu? And then we have to make menu
Hmm.
calls on how all this works. And then, from there we'll refine maybe 3 or 4 more times, depending on how keen they are and how much
Hmm.
work we think needs to happen. And then it all comes together in a beautiful dinner.
All
And so,
right.
yeah, I've usually tasted each dish 4 or 5 times before
Yeah,
I
okay.
get to
All
sit
right.
down and eat, but
Yeah.
I still love it.
Yeah. Cool.
The bakery. You mentioned something in the book about how in Australia bakeries are part of the community and daily life, and how important that is for you growing up there. And I'm curious if the energy and the process in the bakery and techniques wise and flavors wise contrast with your main project, or it follows the same principles, or yeah, how they complement each other, and how would you describe the bakery for people that haven't been there?
Look, I think one of the important things was when we first started, we've always done our own baking and bakery, and my wife Katrina was the first one that sort of was working in that role for a time, and so it really followed our ethos of we want to do it ourselves, we want to have high quality, we want it to look a certain way, and we want it to taste a certain way, and as it evolved, it's very simple. We want to do the best product. We want to make it super tasty, and we want to have it at a reasonable price, so that you can come once a week or twice a week. You can come and pick up a loaf of bread. You can pick up a special treat for a guest, and it's really number one, we wanted to keep that wood-fired element. So when we actually opened a bakery, we got this Canadian oven designer or oven
Okay.
builder, wood-fired oven builder, to design it. And because it was COVID, he couldn't come out and build it, so we built it locally. But we built this huge wood-fired bread oven in our restaurant so that we could have wood-fired bread as the heart and soul of the bakery. And so we do, it is an extension of what we do at the restaurant as opposed to, a very different product to who we are and what we do.
Does humidity affect more the bakery? Because I saw that the rolling of the donuts before they go to the customer twice because of the sugar gets so. Yeah, and these must happen with a lot of processes, right?
Yeah, 100%. The humidity is a nightmare, and if you've got things like meringues and stuff, they can't sit out. If you've got things that are crispy, they don't stay crispy. So we've got to, I guess, moderate our hopes and dreams to reality here. And no, because, we might go, look, we would love to have like all these meringue stuff and we love eating it when we're in Europe or wherever it is. But when you bring it to Singapore, it's soggy shit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And
So you live up to a lot.
Yeah.
It's just not good. So, it's you work to your strengths and avoid your weaknesses a little bit, like humidity.
Interesting.
One of the things I found fascinating when talking about PA, he said that it's not like you can go to farms or anything. Like everything's imported. Like there's no connection to, there's no direct connection to the product, which is
No.
Which seems strange, but I mean, it's I guess like in New York, it's mostly like that too, to a lot of, with some exceptions, obviously, but it just and another thing he said is that, or maybe it was in the book, that people in Singapore rarely eat at home. Is that true?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
They go out for every meal? Like,
some families will go out for pretty much every single meal, and you have these hawker centres which might be at the bottom of your apartment, and so you walk down and you've got a variety of and I'm talking cheap, $3-4 for a breakfast or a lunch, maybe $7 or $8 for a dinner. I don't know where you can cook at home for I can't cook at home for that price.
Right, I mean, it's super expensive there, right? Like Singapore's really expensive, like everything, right?
Yeah, maybe not as much as America, but it is super expensive, especially New York, maybe. But
I don't know.
It's very expensive. Okay. So these hawker centres are everywhere. So the habit of eating out is very normal. They don't have a lot of room in their houses. So, when we first moved here, our accommodation, there was no oven. There's no oven. There was like a tiny little gas grill, and that was it.
Okay.
And so it made a lot more sense for us to, you go downstairs, you eat it, you have like congee, or you might have prata one morning, and then you have curry and fishball soup and noodles and chicken rice. I mean, you've got so many options.
Yeah.
You almost can't get bored.
But doesn't it get exhausting to eat like that all the time? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's because now I kind of live in the countryside, but thinking to go get food for me now is I have to go drive somewhere.
But it's right there, right? It feels like it's close to you.
So imagine having a food hall on your doorstep.
Yeah.
And it was cheaper than you could cook at home for.
Right.
And you didn't have like a big house and lots of cooking facilities and 3 fridges and whatever else, and a big dining table. It's like you're in a small little apartment. The kitchen's really small. You're trying to cook for everyone, but actually you can just go downstairs, have essentially a professional cook for you, and it's cheap.
And because it happens every day, there is no this protocol and whole thing about so I think it makes it just like an extension of your dining room or something.
Exactly, and you see familiar faces and friends down there. It's very communal. It's nice.
Okay. All right.
So,
all right.
But the farm thing is an issue. Not an issue. It's just a bit of a bug. Swapping. I guess there was 2 questions, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, I mean, I guess it's something you have to to adjust to. But it's just like it's such a big part of most modern restaurants these days. Is this like talking about this direct connection to the farmer and blah blah blah. Even when half the time it's bullshit, but still like it's like it's still part of the modern restaurant story.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could never have that. It's just like it just doesn't exist at all, right? Is there a single farm in Singapore or?
Yeah, look, there are farms.
Okay.
Like there's they've got vertical farms.
Right.
And there's a goat farm where they produce milk.
Okay.
And they've got a few things, but it's it's not ideal. It's not like.
Yeah.
It's not like if you're in a country and you've got a farmer down the road, but the climate's perfect, the terroir is perfect, the farming practices are perfect. We don't have that here.
Right. There's no way of Singapore sustaining itself through, the land that it has. No, impossible.
No.
Like, and what about fishing? Fishing is,
fishing, but it's warm water fish.
Okay.
So it's not the quality always that's desired, right? It's like if you've got an option between a Japanese or a Japan area caught fish, super cold waters, perfect storage techniques, perfect like killing techniques, versus like warm water fish that isn't handled very well, not killed properly, and just gets chucked on a slab of dirty ice somewhere. What's your choice going to be as a chef,
but still, like,
let alone a consumer?
But if those things were improved, maybe I don't know, like because there
still
is
warm water.
Yeah, but there are still good fish in warm water. Like in Julie's from Colombia, like from the coast of Colombia, it's tropical and warm. The climate's probably not different from.
Juliana, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Colombia, don't you have actually have the two currents that meet, and you've got the cold water currents and the warm water
on the Pacific
actually,
side.
they produce some of it.
That's the Pacific side, but Pacific side, yes, But I guess
the Atlantic is a whole different thing.
Yeah, the Pacific you do have access to different fish, but still, like on the coast of Caribbean coast, it's warm water. I don't know. But
warm.
Speaking of Colombia, I don't know how that happened, but you mentioned Colombia in your book.
Oh yeah, I was like,
actually, I didn't pick up that segue, but nice segue.
I'm glad you got your devices back at least.
Yeah,
it was hilarious. So in the book, and I love these there's these comic book style history, or graphic novel style history. Of your past, and one of the events is you're in Medellin and you get your phone robbed, or is that right? You're you and your wife.
No, so me and my now wife, yes.
Yeah.
So we were going to a food market, or I thought I was taking to a food market, and I think we had I took $20 worth of Colombian money on me, and we left our phones at home and. So we had nothing, and we were walking up this street where I'm I'm pretty sure we go up this way, and saw a couple of kids roll up, and I'm just I said to my wife, I'm oh, here we go. This is it's how we've talked about this a lot. It's finally happening,
Okay.
and it happened. They pulled knives on us. They separated us. They told us to hand over everything because we didn't have anything. I think they got super frustrated, and then. The next thing you know, there's this guy rolling out. Basically, he could see. It was I emptied my pockets. I didn't have anything. There was really nothing to give. And then next thing, we'd just been separated. My wife was maybe 5 meters away from me, and I was getting to the point where I'm something's going to give, because if they go any further or something happens, it's. There's no coming back. So it's going to be fight or flight in about 3 seconds. And before I knew it, this guy rolls out of the bushes and starts shooting
Oh, shit.
at
Uh, a
us or
cop.
them. And no, it's like it's like community police.
Oh my god.
You know,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
nice name for it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
community police.
it's the neighborhood watch kind of thing, like, but it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
they're armed. Okay, yeah.
and they just started shooting.
Uh-huh.
And me and my wife are like, what's going on? Like, this is nuts. And
Yeah.
these guys just fled. And anyway, then this car pulls up, this like taxi, this lady gets out of it, literally hunts down one of these kids, collars him, brings him back, and was like, give them their phones back. And he's like, he pulls out this stack of phones, so he's obviously been doing it a while. And we're just like, they're not our phones. Like, I don't want their phones. Like, they're not our phones. We don't need them. Just go. And anyway, they put us in a taxi and we went back to the hostel where we were staying. And there was a football game, like, literally down the road from where we were staying. And so we popped over to a bar because we were, especially the missus was pretty shaken by the whole thing, drinking tequilas. Then they shut the doors.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you shutting the doors for? Like, she's already panicking, right? She's already been.
Yeah.
What are you shutting the doors for? She's like, the football game's just finished and we don't know the result yet, and so we're just locking everything up so no one trashes the place on their way through. They end up drinking a lot of tequila that night.
Right.
I'm sorry. So,
Well, first of all, we should just clarify to everyone that that's not typical in Colombia. I think you had like a rare experience that for one could happen in any place in the world. It just happened to happen with you in Medellin.
Look, we had some pretty amazing experiences. We backpacked around. We were in Colombia for over a month, and we were up in. We stayed in this town called Turbo, and on the way up to Capelgana, which is on the Panama border, and and we got told, hey, if no one's in town, get back on the boat and come straight back.
mm-hmm.
And so we're like, we'll go up, we'll see it. Anyway, the little village is buzzing with life. We end up getting a mani-pedi together, drinking beers on the balcony, eating stuff, and there was this beautiful rainforest walk into this natural spring. And we did have some really amazing times in Colombia. So that, obviously, the dramatic side of it is important for the readers and the book and for stories. But yeah, we had an amazing time. We spent 4 months in South America.
Cool.
Huh. Well, yeah, and I don't know why tourism is so focused on. I hear everyone going to Medellin, and it's not. It's fine, but there are so many other places to go in, and maybe you avoid or you reduce the risk of that.
No. So we crossed from Venezuela to Santa Marta.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you go? Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
and then we went
That's
to
beautiful.
and then we went to Cartagena, and then we went up to Turbo to Capelgana, and then all the way back down to Medellin.
Okay, that's why. Yeah.
And
That's
then
why you
because of
ended
what
there.
happened in Medellin, we didn't go to Bogota because we wanted to stay away from the big cities. And so we went across to, I can't remember, it's like a really big port city.
Like on the Caribbean or
Pacific?
No, on the west coast, on the Cali side.
Buenaventura.
And Buenaventura. And then we caught a boat to this, like, it's not an island, but you go up the coast a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And we went and stayed there, and we went surfing, and we heard some very interesting stories. And then we came back down to Cali, and we actually trekked a volcano, which was incredible. I realized I get altitude sickness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when we hiked up a volcano, and we did the what did we do? We did coffee plantations as well up there, horse
you had
riding.
the whole Colombian experience.
Yeah, we spent a month. We spent a month in
Altitude
Colombia,
sickness and everything.
we saw a lot of Colombia, and we
Coffee plantations.
I think that the problem was we weren't always on the tourist trail, which meant that we did expose ourselves
Yeah.
often enough to, not great situations. And,
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
else
still here.
in
We're still.
South America did you go?
So we started off in Venezuela. So obviously I take my wife to the most dangerous city outside of a war zone. And we spent a month in Venezuela. Again, like, we had a few really really good stories that came out of it. But we had amazing experiences. The people were amazing. The nature's incredible. The food was delicious. So we spent a month there, and then we went down to Peru. No,
Ecuador.
Ecuador. Couldn't go to the Galapagos, but we went to poor man's Galapagos, and we saw the blue-footed boobies on the island. And then we went down to Peru and did all the way down, and so did Cabo Blanco in Peru. Thought we were going to get murdered there because we got kicked. So we were staying in Cabo Blanco. We don't know where anything is. We're on a public bus, and they're always like, beware of where you're getting dropped off. If they stop, you're going to get robbed. Da 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 da. Right? Anyway, this bus is like, yeah, get off, go. It's just over there, and we're like, we can't see anything. Can you just take us to the town? And they're like, no. And everyone started yelling at us on the bus and was like, get off, get off, get off.
Yeah.
And so we, jumped off the bus, and, it's pitch black, and there's sand dunes on every side, and, it's just like, go that way. And literally, I pulled my pocket knife out, not that it would have done much, but I had my pocket knife out until we reached like this guardhouse, which is maybe 2 kilometers up the road. And we're like, where's this place? We're saying, oh, it's just behind here. Don't worry, you're good. And it's like, completely unwarranted, but you just get dropped in the middle of nowhere. And we did Death Road in Bolivia.
Yeah,
we did
the mountain
the
bike
festival
thing.
the mountain bike thing. And actually, we had a girl in the group behind us fell.
Oh.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Fell. She fell 200 to 300 meters down the cliff, and no emergency services. No, our guide was the only one with rescue equipment, so he had to go back up and get it all sorted. The only painkillers on the whole mountain was Panadol, and she had to drive 2 or 3 hours back to the capital, La Paz, for treatment.
Yeah, this was a while ago, right? Like all of this South America trip, at least 10 years ago. Or...
This was 2012, end of 2012.
Okay, yeah, it's like things aren't quite as
That
wild
was before
anymore.
the peace process deal.
Yeah.
That was before the peace process deal in Colombia.
Yeah,
which was 2016. So.
Yeah, and I think it was before. Who was it? Che Guevara, or what's his name? Who's the dictator in Venezuela?
Oh yeah,
Chavez. Before he passed away. So it's like just as he was finishing.
Yeah.
So it was all pretty turbulent.
With all the politics, current politics.
Yeah.
Back in time.
No, but I mean, I backpacked around South America in like 2005, and it was kind of the same thing. And but it's like now it's not. Even though like politically it's way more charged, I think, than it was then. Like I think it's much harder to have those kind of wild experiences. Like like going off road in Peru. There's some of these like beautiful mountains, like Rainbow Mountain, something like 10 years ago wasn't on like anyone's radar, is now just like a line of buses and people. And it's weird. It's like I don't know, things are a little more like sanitary and in terms of
I
like
think the
tourist
internet
amenities. I think now, but
yeah, I think internet and camera phones have sort of
yeah,
done a lot of that damage, hasn't it? It's
yeah,
you know, you
fucking
can repeat yourself
Instagram.
a lot,
Yeah,
and yeah, people send a photo and it becomes the hottest new thing and gets
yeah.
turbocharged into normalness.
While we're still on the kind of topic of travel, I mean, you did like as a cook, not just like as a traveling adventurer or whatever. You traveled quite a bit. Like I mean, a lot of your influences are from outside Australia. Like
Yeah,
we mentioned Noma. You cooked where else in London at didn't you? Didn't
yeah,
I read
with
that somewhere?
at
Okay.
St John Bread and
Okay. Yeah,
Wine
St.
and
John.
Echevarri in Spain.
Yeah, Echevarri. I wanted to stop there for a minute because what was your experience there? Like, how long were you there? For one.
So it was off the back of Noma. One of the guys that I was working with, a guy called Yanni, was like, "You should go check out this place. It's barbecue." And I didn't have anything else to do at that time. I was looking for the next place to go, and it was like,
Okay.
yeah, barbecue. And in my mind, I'm like, how good can it be, right? It's barbecue. I'd never really been to a restaurant or a barbecue restaurant that was a proper restaurant. And
Right.
so going there, I was kind of like, oh, look, what's it all about? Let's see what it's all about. And finally got in, and I went there and was just absolutely blown away. It was like, the produce that they get, the way they look after it, the way they store it, their hospitality was like absolutely incredible. And, their technique when they start cooking, I didn't realize you could have technique and barbecue couldn't be spoken about at the same time. So, being able to see that firsthand was really the game changer for me with how it all worked. So I think what happened is I went for 3 months. To answer your question, went for 3 months, stayed for 5 months before leaving. So,
Like, what was that the moment? Like that experience, the kind of moment where it kind of you had some more direction towards towards like burn ends.
100%. Just
Okay.
I love everything about cooking with wood, how he goes about it, understanding that there's techniques, understanding that you could run a proper restaurant with barbecue. That was the place where we went, oh, you can run a proper restaurant with barbecue. And so then going forward a little bit, we're going to London and being involved with all the pop-ups with the Young Turks and, James Lowe's and Isaac and the Clove Club guys. I was always put on the barbecue. So it was always, it sort of became the thing that I was doing. And so that's sort of reinforced that idea and was like, oh, actually, I can do this and drive it forward.
And then that's when you start doing the pop-ups in London.
Yes.
Right.
So on the
Okay.
back of that, I think 2012, the summer of 2012 in the UK, Nuno Mendez's mate, Ian, was like, I want to do a barbecue in my railway arch where we do our coffee roasting. And so Nuno was like, oh, you should speak to this guy. And so we chatted and, one thing led to another and he thought he was getting a couple of gas grills and a bit of merguez. And we built these 4-ton dual cavity wood burning oven and these massive elevation grills in his courtyard. So, that's where it all kicked off.
What I found interesting, and I found this theme a lot in your book, but also through Echevarri, is how personalized the grills are. It's like there's not like one standard. It's not like Argentina where it's like all the grills kind of look the same, or even though there's very different variations for cooking different things, but like it's so personalized to who you are and what you want to cook, and there's not just like one element that you need to build. It's just, I don't know. It's just everything's just this like handmade, like your own design, everything that's kind of in your head, putting it together thing. I don't know. Does that make sense? I think I'm going off on a weird tangent.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, look, I think,
Okay.
you know, when we built the first set of ovens, you know, I was trying to model it on, you know, the reasons why Etchebarri had ovens, which was primarily to burn coals. But then
Yeah.
one of the things I really enjoyed while I was there is, you know, when you'd cook like baby goat in the oven, or, you know, for family meal, we would have to cook, or we would not have to, but we would cook like lasagnas and bake them in the cold oven. And I think, you know, sort of, and then you go work at St. John where they do these slow roasted suckling pigs, right? In deck ovens. And when you figure out, oh, what did I really love doing? I enjoyed, like, I love doing the slow roasting of the animals, and I love doing like slow baked dishes that were beautiful. So actually I needed to not just burn wood. I have to have it to be able to do this. And so that's, you know, there's nothing on the market where you can just be like, oh, let's tick this box and grab one of these.
Yeah.
And so it did need to be personalized, and because it was freeform and not built into a pre-existing structure, we had to figure it out, and we had to have a crack at making it. So it was very personalized because there were certain things we wanted to do with it that hadn't been done before.
Yeah, I think what I was getting at was that there's not really like a replicable setup for a modern barbecue restaurant. You know, it's so adapted to your specific building, your specific, you know, part of the world, or whatever. It's not just like a French kitchen where it's like you need a line of, you know, burners and whatever.
Sous vide machines.
Yeah, sous vide machines. Yeah, no, but it's cool, and I think it gives such individuality to all these kitchens. You know that.
Yeah,
It's cool, and they all look different. But when you went to Singapore, the kitchen setup was much different, right? It was like a tiny little place in Chinatown, like much smaller.
yeah. It's like, you know, 1,400 square foot. You know, we had 18 counter seats. We had this tiny little kitchen, tiny little cool room, and that was it, right? And so, you know, we went from doing these big, you know, 400-person outdoor barbecues to this tiny little, you know, 2 to 3, maybe 4-person like meals.
Yeah,
that just were extremely different to what we were used to. And so, you know, there was a fair bit of, you know, we weren't cooking whole turbots anymore.
right.
We couldn't sell like all these huge steaks and stuff like that. So we needed to sort of listen to the customer a lot about how they wanted to use the space and what we needed to do for them to make it work.
But you didn't want to do yakitori, right? Like that's that was one of the things PA told me too. Like it was just like
that was a big thing. So one of my now partners was like, you know, still goes to Japan a lot and loves Japan. And, you know, what his thing was, you know, I want to bring yakitori to Singapore.
Right.
And, you know, that their idea was I'll do yakitori and, you know, a few other things. And I came along and was like, well, no, this is what I do. And he was like, well, could we just put like a little bit of yakitori in there? And so I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about yakitori. I'd never been to Japan at that stage. But I knew enough to know that, you know, they've been perfecting this art for a long time. There was a lot of skill, a lot of technique, and a lot of mastery behind it. Stuff that I'd had none of, like 0%. And I was just like, I'm not an imposter. I'm not trying to do something that I have no idea about. Stick to what I know. If you want it, take it. If you don't want it, we could part ways.
Yeah, but it worked out. And,
So
but the new space is massive, from what I understand, and it's like a barbecue wonderland of equipment and spaces and grills and wood and smoke, and so it's just like
yeah,
it's pretty recent, right? Just like when you hired PA, it was like just starting the
yeah,
new space.
maybe we would have been maybe
Okay.
a year old when we set off on this expedition, and so we went. It's probably 10 times bigger than the old space, including the outside, and
Mm-hmm.
we've got the bakery with the wood-fired bread oven. We've got the main restaurant with the oven and grills. Then we've got the private room where we built a new oven, which is a double-sided oven. So it's like instead of having one side with doors, we've got two sides with doors, and so you can use it both sides. And then we've got smaller grills set up, full kitchen, and then we've just renovated our bar, or we put in a bar kitchen specifically with them, with a baby oven and a baby grill. and then we inherited. Francis Malman came to Singapore a couple of years ago, and he was looking to rehome his Malman grill that he used while he was in Singapore, and so we bought that, and had a lot of fun playing with that. And we recently bought an American offset.
Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, we're building up the toys and all the different things of barbecue, and just enjoying experimenting and seeing how other things work and what the benefits are and why people love them, which is so exciting.
Cool. Well, one day I'll get there. One day. All right, man.
Don't make it too long.
Yeah, I know. It's like my trips to Asia are pretty infrequent, but one day I'll get there.
One day. Where are you
Yeah.
based?
I'm in New York, but mostly in South America for work too. So,
Okay. Yeah. And Juliana,
All
you're
right.
in Colombia.
No, I'm in Los Angeles. Yeah, I know.
Safe from the
Yeah.
fires?
Yeah, I mean, in comparison with the people that were, directly affected, for sure.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's intense. Everything that comes with that, and the aftermath, which is
Yeah.
still. But yeah, I mean, I'm safe.
You're okay.
Their quality is concerned, because apparently even when is it green good or yellow moderate, apparently it's not true, because
Okay.
all the residuals that these machines don't detect. So I think they have to come up with new technique to be more accurate. And
Oh,
I think
wow.
that's the main concern in the aftermath. Is like how, but I mean, yes. So far, I can literally see, yes, I'm safe.
You're good.
Thank you. I like the laugh, fire. Let's talk about fire in different versions of it,
Different,
different
Yeah.
manifestations.
It's all
Yeah.
connected, and it's
It's all connected.
Yeah.
I have a question about fine dining. If you have your own definition of fine dining, or if you can think about one in this conversation.
Fine dining. I think the way I think about fine dining is that it's, the epitome of product, technique, service, and overindulgence. And I think, especially when you go to like 3 stars and stuff, it's like you might be able to find similar products, you might be able to find similar techniques and technical abilities, and service. Service can be that extra level just because they've got so many staff and really the best of the best. But the big thing is with especially the 3-star fine dining is that it's this overindulgence of, too much choice, too much decadence, and too much, maybe not the right word, or the words, but it's, that excess of food that you never thought you wanted. And I think, that's why it's so exciting for me.
Huh. Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, it was great speaking with you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time, guys.
What time is it there?
Yeah.
We are in extreme.
It's 10 past 11.
Oh shit! Yeah. Go to bed, man. Like that. All right.
We still got Friday night service going on.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
like
Not quite yet. Not quite yet.
okay. Like, what time do you usually get out?
Usually never before midnight.
Okay.
And I'm generally the first one out. So
all right.
yeah.
All right. Well, we won't keep you too long.
All
so, thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, guys. It was
Talk to
lovely
us.
talking to you guys. And
Lovely.
if you have any other
Nice to
questions,
meet
let
you.
me know.
I'll do.
And
For
please
the
let me
next
know if
book.
Oh,